Hello and welcome. If you're here, it's because you use AWS. And if you use AWS, you probably use Amazon S3. S3 is a foundational service for object storage in the cloud that provides unparalleled security, durability, availability, scalability, and performance. And throughout your journey using S3, you will likely encounter the need to connect your end users to your data in S3. And if you already provide your own differentiated services to these users today through your own front-end applications, then you probably want to connect them to your data in the same applications they use today. Wouldn't you know it, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. I'm Louis Labrador, and I'm a product manager with Amazon S3. And I'm joined by Jen Boulware, who's a senior software development manager, also with S3. And we are super excited to have with us today Keshav Sharma. He's a senior product manager with Salesforce, and he's going to be talking about his use case for connecting his customers to his data in S3 through his own application. So let's take a look at the agenda for today's session. First, we're going to talk about how customers use S3 today. Then we're going to transition and talk about a problem that customers brought to us related to challenges they faced when it came time to connect their end users to their data in S3. Afterwards, we're going to share some really exciting news about how we're solving that problem. And then we're going to demonstrate the solution. And then after that, we're going to share some illustrative use cases that we hope give you a better understanding of the variety of ways in which you can get value out of the solution for your organization. And that's when Keshav's going to come on stage and talk to us about how Salesforce is putting our solution to work. Then we're going to wrap up the session and leave you with some key takeaways as well as a call to action. And by the time that you walk out of this room today, you will have the understanding of how to add a beautiful page like this one to your own applications so that you can provide any of your authorized end users, including your customers, your third-party partners, and your employees, with a super simple way to work with data in S3 that they need to do their jobs through the same applications you provide them today. As you can see, we've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's get started. So let's start with a super basic question. How do customers use S3 today? Holy moly. Customers use S3 in a lot of ways. I won't go through each of them, but you get the idea. But at the end of the day, across all the variety of use cases, the single most important thing is that it's all about the data, and specifically how you can use that data to power a meaningful experience for your end users. And now let's transition to talking about a problem that customers faced when it came time to doing exactly that, and to delivering a meaningful experience in their same applications by providing their end users with access to data in S3. You see, many of our customers have a lot of end users, including their customers, their third-party partners, and their employees. And these folks don't have familiarity with AWS and S3, but they do have familiarity with the same front-end applications they use today to do their jobs. And our customers have a ton of data in S3 that these end users could use to be more productive and to get more out of the data. And furthermore, our customers already provide differentiated services to these end users through their own front-end applications. And so they want to connect their users to their data in S3 through the same applications that they use today. But to do this historically, customers would have to write their own front-end code to provide an elegant user interface for working with data in S3. They would also have to write their own back-end code to optimize the SDKs in order to deliver a meaningful experience for the end user. Or customers had the option to use third-party software that provides little control over the user experience, adds cost, and is difficult or impossible to add to their own applications. And so what did this do? These challenges inevitably led to data silos, in which end-user data is stored entirely separately from enterprise storage in S3. And these data silos led to untapped potential, in which end users could be doing a lot more day-to-day with that data. And our customers could be storing all of their data in one place. And furthermore, web developers were burdened by the undifferentiated heavy lifting of trying to solve this problem, rather than the core features of their applications that actually differentiate their services for these end users. And so customers came to us over the past few years asking for a really simple way to solve this problem, to connect end users with data in their own applications. And so essentially what we had was a two-sided problem. On one side, end users just needed an easy way to work with data. On the other side, web developers needed an easy way to do that, to help support end users working with data in S3 through the same applications they manage today. And so we started working backwards from this problem, and we realized right away that what you needed was an interface. The interface would have to be designed with the end user in mind so that anybody could get started without any formal training or familiarity with AWS and S3. Furthermore, the interface would also have to be designed with the web developer in mind so that they could customize the look and feel of it in order for it to match seamlessly with the rest of the host application. And with this criteria, we determined that the best way to solve the problem was to build the interface in open source. And at this part of our thinking, the problem started to look super familiar. You see, over the last 2 years, we in S3 have become strongly convicted that the S3 service needs to go beyond the API boundary to help customers access and work with data in S3 the way they want to. And over that time, we've built and delivered several open source connectors to help customers do exactly that, and to deliver better performance for their applications as a result. But unlike our existing connectors, this interface would again have to be designed for the average business user. And it would also have to be designed in a very composable fashion so that the web developer would have all the controls they needed to make the user interface design and user experience match seamlessly with the rest of the host application. And that's why we decided to build the interface in AWS Amplify. For context, AWS launched the Amplify service in order to help front-end developers build their applications on AWS services like S3. And to deliver on that mission, AWS Amplify provides several open source UI component and client SDK libraries to do exactly that. Put simply, AWS Amplify is the full stack solution to help front-end developers build, deploy, and host their applications on AWS. So after bringing together all the different puzzle pieces we needed to solve this problem, we built Storage Browser for Amazon S3, an open source React UI component that customers can add to their own web applications to provide end users with an easy way to work with data in S3 through the same applications they use today. With Storage Browser for S3, our customers' customers, third-party partners, and employees have an easy way to browse, download, and upload data in S3 directly from the same applications they know how to use today. There's 3 primary features for Storage Browser for S3, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into each of these. But to list them out quickly, the first is that you can federate access to your data based on the end user's identity. Second, you can customize the look and the feel of the interface to match seamlessly with the rest of your application. And third, you can take advantage of really powerful optimizations we've built into a new client SDK specific for Storage Browser. And I'm really excited to go into the details of these later in the session. We launched an alpha version of Storage Browser for S3 in September this year so that customers could begin testing it and could provide us with feedback. And I'm super excited to share that this past Sunday, we announced the general availability of Storage Browser for S3. With this announcement, Storage Browser is now ready for your production use cases. And we've added a ton of new functionality for both the end user and the web developer. Specifically for the end user, we've added the ability to drag and drop uploads, to search for files by name, and to copy and delete data. And for the web developer, we've added the ability to customize endpoints and to also collect UI state feedback from the component so that the host application has better visibility into what users are doing with the interface. Storage Browser for S3 is available in the AWS Amplify, JavaScript, and React client libraries and is free to use today. But regardless of your use case, Storage Browser for S3 is backed by AWS support, just like any other feature of S3. That means that customers with business and enterprise support plans get 24/7 access to AWS support engineers to help support their use case for Storage Browser. Okay, now that you know a little bit about the origin story for Storage Browser, the problem we were trying to solve, as well as what it is at a high level, let's dive a little bit deeper into the specific features that I listed earlier. As I mentioned before, you can federate access to your data based on your end user's identity. And Storage Browser only displays the data that you've authorized your users to access. So you can do this in a variety of ways, and we're going to get into all of the options a little bit later in the session. But first, let's talk about how you could do this for your entire workforce. You could do this for your workforce by using S3 Access Grants. Access Grants is a feature of S3 that allows you to map user groups in your corporate directory or IAM principals to data sets in S3 at the bucket, prefix, or even object level. And you can grant read, write, or read and write access to your data. Okay, let's look at what an access grant actually looks like. As you can see with the example on the bottom of the screen, access grants are comprised of 3 parts. The first part is the S3 resource you are granting access to. In this example, you can see we're granting access to the blue prefix. The second part is the access level. As you can see, we're granting read-only access. And the third part is the grantee, essentially who you're granting access to. In this example, we're granting access to a directory identity group. And so to sum it all up, any member of this directory identity group will have read-only access to any data within the blue prefix. So they'll be able to get, they'll be able to list, they'll be able to do other read type operations, but they will not be able to put or delete or do other write type operations. Okay, let's look at the second primary feature of Storage Browser. As I mentioned before, Storage Browser is composable by design so that web developers have the full control that they need in order to match the look and feel of the rest of their application. So you can make this look entirely different than it does right now, and Jen is going to get into some of that in the demonstration later. You can also take advantage of client-facing event handlers in order to write and then present your own custom logic as custom actions that the users can take in order to support your unique use cases. Now let's look at the third primary feature of Storage Browser. As I mentioned before, we've built a new client SDK for Storage Browser specifically. And we built it in JavaScript. And what we've done is we've added 3 really powerful optimizations in order to take away the undifferentiated heavy lifting from your web developers and to deliver a meaningful experience for your end users. Specifically, we added logic to automatically optimize uploads for high throughput data transfer using S3 multi-part uploads. Multi-part uploads is a feature of S3 that breaks large objects into chunks that get uploaded in parallel. The second key component of this new SDK is logic that we've built in to automatically calculate checksums of all of the data being uploaded through the interface. And any of the durability checks that fail will result in a failed put request to S3. And this just ensures that only the data that your end users intended to upload to S3 actually gets uploaded to S3. And third, we were able to reduce the bundle size for this SDK to a really, really small footprint so that it delivers faster load times in your application and as a result, a more responsive experience for your end users. So to sum it all up, adding Storage Browser Test 3 to your applications empowers your end users to do more with their data, to be more productive, and to get more value out of your data. It also helps unburden your web developers so that they could just focus on the core features of their application. And there's a variety of use cases that Storage Browser could support. For example, your marketers could upload the latest ad campaign for your team's next release. Your video editors can find and then download post-production footage that they need to edit. Your researchers can copy clinical trial data from internal prefixes to externally shared prefixes so that third-party auditors can review test results. And the list of use cases really goes on and on. You might be wondering, though, how does Storage Browser actually work? Well, let's talk about the inner workings of Storage Browser and put it into the context of the architecture for your applications. As I mentioned before, Storage Browser only displays the data that you've authorized your end users to work with. And you federate access to your data based on your end users' identities. So you can do this in 3 different ways that Storage Browser is designed to work with. First, you can use IAM Identity Center with S3 access grants to help connect your entire workforce to your data in S3 through those applications. So IAM Identity Center helps you bring in the context of your corporate directory stored in an external identity provider like Azure Entra ID into AWS, and then S3 access grants allows you to map user groups in your corporate directory to data sets in S3, as we discussed earlier. And when you use this option, all of your CloudTrail data events will include the end user's identity as well. And this really just helps improve the observability of data access for S3, for your data in S3. The second authorization mode you can use with Storage Browser is based on Amazon Cognito. So Cognito is a customer identity and access management service that has flexible sign-up and sign-in features, and you can add a lot of really interesting security features like adaptive authentication in order to help with your data residency requirements. And there's a whole lot more. But really, to sum it up in the context of Storage Browser, this option is really helpful when you want to connect your customers and third-party partners with your data in S3. And your customers and partners can authenticate using social or enterprise identity providers with this option. And once you've set up Cognito, you would then need to create IAM policies in a similar fashion to how we talked about S3 access grants in order for you to authorize those folks to use your data in S3. All right, let's talk about the third option for authorization. It's essentially based on your own managed identity and authorization service. And to use this option, you essentially need to vend the Storage Browser component with STS tokens that authorize the session for your user. And once you've set up the authorization that you want to work with Storage Browser takes care of the rest and essentially translates end users' actions in the component to AWS API calls using the SDK optimizations we mentioned earlier. Okay, now that you have a better understanding of the origin story for Storage Browser, what Storage Browser is, and how it works, my colleague Jen is going to walk us through a demo.
So Lou's done a great job giving you context, talking about the customer problem, and how Storage Browser for S3 solves that problem. I'm going to show you how to actually use Storage Browser. Specifically, over the next few minutes, I'm going to take my Danny Corp application, and we're going to add Storage Browser and customize it. All right, to start with, we're going to log in really quickly because we know we want to authenticate in our application. Now that we're in, you can see we just have a placeholder for our storage module that we're going to start implementing. The very first thing we're going to do is we are going to do an import to pull down that Amplify code package so we can start using it. Now that we have it, Let's start adding our component. I wish I could code this fast. All we're doing here is we're going to set up the very basic defaults. So what you see here is we're setting a region, our account ID, and then that credential provider that Louis gave you options for. This could be Access Grants, Cognito, or STS. Beyond that, we're really not doing much. In fact, we're replacing Coming Soon with the very default storage browser. And let's take a look. You can already see, although the styling is a little off, we see our files and folders, our locations. We can do some basic browsing. We're going to go in, we'll see our test folder that we have access to, and then you can see we have 3 files in here. Up at the top, we'll switch over. We're going to the Amazon S3 console. And just to show back and forth, all this data is live. It's all in sync and it's in the cloud. So let's go ahead and delete something. Let's be bold. From this status window, you can change your mind at the last minute. You'll see this in use for upload and copy as well. It shows a nice status along the way. I've deleted some data. I've gone back into S3. It's gone. It's really gone. And just to prove it to you, on the command line in the CLI, we're going to run a list command, and you'll see that my test folder has only 1 file remaining. But don't panic. I can always add more files because I have those permissions. So let's go into upload. Again, this nice screen. From upload, you can actually add files. You can do whole folders. You can choose whether you want to overwrite or not. And then what I really like is you see individual status and then the status at the bottom as well that gives you an overall update and progress of your uploads and copies. So let's go back and recheck. There's our newly uploaded files, and just to prove it to you, we'll refresh in the management console. There's all of our data. There's also a really nice filter feature, and you can actually do a subfolder search, a recursive search as well. And then again, from the action menu, we can pick Create Folder so that you can better organize your data. All this is great. Our functionality is all working, just out of the box. So let's go back and work on this styling a little bit. So you see we just had the storage browser default. The colors are off, the fonts are off. So we're going to add a little bit of styling with a theme. And we'll do this in phases. So the first thing I'm really going to do is change the font just so that visually it looks the same. Now we go back over. For me, I'm not a designer, which my designers love, but you'll see the font has changed. But the color was off. So Danny Corp is blue. And this is blue. It's not the right blue. So let's go back into the code and let's be really specific about what that shade of blue needs to be because we want it to look unified, right? We want it to look like it's just part of our application. And now it does. There's Danny Corp Blue. So let's take customization a little bit further. There's actually 3, we started with that default view, the storage browser with nothing fancy. But there's actually a few views that you can use. And the first one we're going to use is a list view. If you notice when we were looking, we just had one tile where we would navigate around. And maybe you want to give a global concept, like a global view of all of the areas that your users have access to. So with the list view, you can actually add that. Think about maybe a left nav, if you're used to that, so that your users see that they can jump from folder or bucket to bucket, folder to folder, where they have access. And just like that, it's added. So now from that left, I can always jump at a higher level without having to navigate up and down. The second view that we're going to modify is the list details view, or the locations detail view. So that is on your screen, your right side, tile where we do all of our actions, right? So we want to make sure customers or our users know to click one of those locations to start. So we're just going to add a nice select a location bit of text on the screen to let them know what to do to start with. And we're just going to tie, and we can customize that view a little bit more depending on what you want in your own applications. We want to make sure that we have some connection between the two so that as we're going back and forth, we get back to that nice select a location. There's our new view instead of the default. And just like that, you see our select a location, and everything still works. From our action menu, we're going to create a folder, just like before, and verify things are still working. And again, we'll show an upload, select some files, and this time just pay attention to that status, right? I think it gives a really great indicator for our users of what's going on and how things are working. What if the functionality that you want to provide is not copy, delete, create folder, upload? We've actually built in some hooks and the ability to add your own custom actions from that action menu using the location action view. And that's what we're going to do here. So in this scenario, you want to provide pre-signed URLs, links. Your users can create links to give access to certain files externally. So we are going to add a location action view option so that it will add a new item in that action drop-down menu for a pre-signed URL and also a form that will pop up. And so what you're seeing here on screen is us just adding some of those pieces, right? So we're adding our share action view. We want to control what happens on exit. This is all the things your front-end developers would work on. We want to make sure that we're displaying things on screen. So some things that you would want to have for a file share, you'd want things like a duration. You need to have the ability to see the link, that status that I've been talking about, just to give your end users a really good idea of what's going on, how things are processing so that they see progress along the way. And just sizing and making it look great in the UI. Giving them an exit button. And then here, for duration, we're going to let them set duration. So we'll let them step between 15 and 300. Not a ton of code for the result. This is where we're adding in that display text. You can see a link where we're actually providing the link that we'll be sharing, and then that status that I talked about just a moment ago. We'll do a little bit of cleanup, make sure that we add this in. And now, let's take a look. So again, here's our browser. We're going to navigate into our test folder to those new files that we've added. And then now when we look at the action menu, there's a new item called share. And this is that share action view that we just created. We're going to toggle our duration, and then we start it. And there's the status and the link. In this example, we're just going to open that link in a new browser tab, but this is something that you would share and give to other users to be able to have access to those files. Not bad. That took 10 minutes. That took 10 minutes. Imagine what your developers can do if that took 10 minutes. I want to walk through some use cases to help you think about how you could actually apply and use Storage Browser in your own applications. And again, it's all about connecting your users to data and making it really easy to collaborate. So one common use case we've heard from our customers is the need to get the latest data. So let's say you have your sales and your marketing team. Sales has those latest sales reports, and your marketing team needs to know how their latest campaigns are doing, how those ad campaigns are doing to drive sales. They need the latest data they can embed. If you embed Storage Browser into the applications that your marketing team's already using, they can find the latest sales reports, they can download them, and they can look at them and understand what's happening. They could actually then craft updated marketing strategy docs, upload those into shared locations for peers and leadership to review, speeding collaboration. Another scenario, and Louis mentioned this earlier, is researchers. When you're doing research in clinical trials, that data is private. That is kept internally. It is not data that you want to share. However, it does have to be shared with third-party auditors at the end of the trial for review. If you can put Storage Browser into your internal portals or your intranet sites that your researchers are already using, they can then find that test data, the clinical trial data, they can take it, they can copy it to an externally shared location for the third-party auditors to get access to review. And again, using those authentication and authorization tools that Louis talked about, access grants or Cognito, maybe they're not on your network, you have the ability to control who has access to those files and when. Finally, what if you have people that need access, they need to collaborate, but they have really specialized tools? So think about your graphic designers, your video editors, right? You need to keep all that data in the cloud so that they can collaborate, but they need to go and find that data down, or find those files, download it, edit them with their specialized tools, right? Then they can take them and put them back up into the cloud to collaborate. Storage Browser can help with all of this. Help your team collaborate more efficiently. And finally, I'd like to talk about an internal AWS use case for Storage Browser. How many of you have ever heard of Transfer Family? Nice. Okay. So Transfer Family is a managed AWS service that helps customers transfer data from storage services, in and out of storage services like S3. And what they wanted was a way to provide their customers, the admins that use Transfer Family, needed a way to be able to, again, make this data from S3 accessible and usable. The only problem is their customers don't have that intranet site or that application web portal that we've been talking about. They needed to be able to create one very easily. And so the Transfer Family built a brand new resource for their service, and it's called AWS Transfer Family Web Applications, or we call it Web Apps here. The great thing is they built this on top of Storage Browser for S3. And so by doing that, you get all of those great things by default, the SDK performance, the optimizations on upload, automatically. And what it is a no-code, fully managed solution for creating secure UIs, user interfaces, for transferring data to and from S3. It's a fully hosted and managed AWS solution. And so this is for users that do not have their own applications. They do not want to host and manage that. How does it work? Well, the first two steps are going to be this very similar or very common for Storage Browser, right? You have to set up your IAM Identity Center instance to control access. You then want to define your S3 access grants so that you can manage that fine-grained control. Louis talked about giving certain write permissions or read permissions, right? Those are so important to make sure that you know who's accessing your data. And then there's magic. From the Transfer Family console, you go through and you answer some questions. It's a really easy interface to set the customizations. The things in Storage Browser that we were putting in code with your themes and your fonts, you'll walk through their UI in their console, and in the end, it will give you a URL that you share. So as an admin, I share that with my users, and it opens up a web application where I can access my S3 data. It makes it really easy, right, for customers to deploy and host this web application without really having to manage it themselves. If you want to learn more, I encourage you to check out STG268. You can ask me after if you want that again. And now I'm going to hand off to Keshav, who's going to talk about how Salesforce has put Storage Browser to work for them. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Keshav Sharma. I'm a part of the product team at Salesforce. And today I'm really excited to be talking more about how our team at Salesforce plans on using the Storage Browser for S3 to enhance our Data Cloud offering and deliver improved customer experiences. Quick show of hands, how many of us in the audience today are already familiar with what Salesforce Data Cloud does? I see a few hands. So to just quickly spend a minute over here talking about Data Cloud and its offerings. One of the key challenges that we hear from our customers is while they have a large volume of data, this data lives in siloed systems. And the volume of this data continues to grow exponentially in silos. And to answer to this particular use case and customer challenge, Data Cloud offers a suite of inbuilt connectors through which you can connect your external data source to Data Cloud, ingest your data from it to it as well. Just as an example, we have a lot of customers who have the data stored in S3, and they would want to make the data available to and ingestible to Data Cloud, so that not only can these customers benefit from Data Cloud's features and capabilities, but also so that they can make the data available in the wider Salesforce context. But unlocking trapped data is not all of it, right? Even after we have ingested your data to Data Cloud, it's really important that we are able to make this data available across different use cases and scenarios, so that our customers are able to deliver the value proposition and the use cases that their customers desire. Think of businesses who have multiple product offerings. It's really important for these businesses to have a single pane view of all their customers. And that's where profile unification, along with the ability to unify your data across different sources through inbuilt data models, comes into the picture. Now, Data Cloud also allows you to govern your data through policies at different levels of granularity. And once you have unified and governed your data, you can use the inbuilt capabilities for segmentation and calculated insights to proactively respond to the changing customer needs and use cases. And finally, enterprise AI is becoming an inevitable reality, right? And to quickly spend a couple of points over here diving deeper into it, today we are in what we call the third evolution of enterprise AI with assistive agents, and we're soon approaching a stage where autonomous agents will be fully functional as well. Now, the importance and the pressure for data increases exponentially along this wave curve, and Data Cloud sits at the very center of all the AI innovation happening in Salesforce. Since through Data Cloud, customers can not only leverage their first-party Salesforce data, but also the third-party data which was ingested through external data systems to Data Cloud, and make that data available for grounding purposes to the pre-built agents within Salesforce, or even build custom agents on top of that data. And we can, of course, not talk about data and its importance at Salesforce without mentioning S3, right? So today we use S3 across multiple different contexts. Firstly, to store our customers' structured data. This is data which is typically stored in a textual format, can be represented in a table pretty accurately. We use S3 as a storage for it. But that's not all of it, because over 80% of our customers' data is unstructured in nature. What that really means is it's data which cannot be accurately and cleanly represented in a classical relational store. And we once again use S3 as a choice of built-in object store for it. And for those customers who don't want to create a copy of the data in Data Cloud, we do provide them with an S3 connector, using which customers can just reference the data in their source S3 tenant and make it available to Data Cloud and the wider Salesforce platform. So unified customer experiences and easy-to-use experiences are of key importance to my team at Data Cloud, specifically in the context of files and file management. And there are three key challenges that we're facing today, which we see the storage browser for S3 to be applicable for and help us solve for, right? So firstly, we want to start off by improving the experience for our inbuilt S3 connector. So today, Data Cloud allows customers, like I previously mentioned, to make their data in their S3 tenant available to Data Cloud through the use of the connector. One key step that the customers take along this process is to mention their prefix paths. along with the file name patterns that they wish to ingest to Data Cloud. So today, Salesforce does not have a way of allowing users to browse through their S3 tenant while remaining within the Salesforce platform. The only way customers can do this is by leaving the Salesforce platform, using their S3 console, or any other custom S3 console that they may have built in-house, view the required objects that they wish to ingest into Data Cloud, and then come back to Data Cloud's platform and then mention those prefixes and file name patterns. Now, needless to say, this delivers a less than ideal experience for our customers, right? More importantly, because the user who's performing this ingestion in Data Cloud may not even have access to their organization's S3 and may not be able to mention the prefix paths and file name patterns which are required for the ingestion. And building a storage browser ground up for Salesforce was going to be a huge lift, right? Specifically when user-generated authentication comes into the picture as well. And that's where we turn to Storage Browser for S3. So now, using Storage Browser for S3, we believe we can inch closer towards our vision for delivering unified experiences for our customers. Since using Storage Browser for S3, customers will be able to not only view their prefix paths and file name patterns within the context of the Salesforce platform, but also select their files which they're interested in, and finally create the data lake objects within Salesforce, the primary object in which data is stored in Data Cloud. And most importantly, perform all these actions without leaving the Salesforce platform. Right? And to deliver on these experiences, we'll be leveraging Storage Browser for S3's capabilities for user-generated authentication and provisioning data access. The moment that the user creates a connection with their S3 tenant, the credentials that the user enters over there will be reused to showcase the user's S3 browser built-in experience within the Salesforce platform, through which the user will be able to choose their files and file name patterns and ingest the data to Data Cloud. Now, since Data Cloud lives at the very core of all your data in Salesforce, it's really important that we are able to provide our customers with a single source of truth for all this data. A few slides ago, I'd mentioned the 3 key ways in which Data Cloud aims to offer value to its customers. So diving a bit deeper into it and understanding what this really means from the perspective of files and file management, we see customers ingesting the data from both the Salesforce platform. These are file attachments core to the CRM platform itself, such as your accounts, opportunities, and cases, and also third-party sources like S3, which I previously mentioned. We have a suite of different product offerings within Salesforce, all the way from Service Cloud, Industry Cloud, and Marketing Cloud, and all these different products want to leverage Data Cloud to deliver 360 experiences for their customers. And finally, all of Salesforce's AI services and agents will be leveraging the data within Data Cloud for grounding purposes. Right? And most importantly, all these files and file systems, to some degree, will be in the Data Cloud platform, which is why it's really important for us to offer our customers the single source of truth that they desire. More so even because it's not just different users and different user personas who are uploading these files and managing it, but these files are coming in from completely independent product offerings within the entire Salesforce family of products. Right? And digging a bit deeper into that and understanding how the Storage Browser for S3 will help us deliver on the vision for unified experiences. Now, there's a growing trend of multimodal AI, and multimodal AI basically refers to systems and models which can interpret, understand, manipulate, and finally generate files across different modalities, all the way from text files to audio-video files, and so on. Right? And with the trend of multimodal AI, which is coming into the use cases that we are trying to deliver for our customers as well, it's going to be really important for the Salesforce's business persona, the admin, to be easily able to skim through and sift through the different files which are not just inputted by the user, but also files which have been generated by the AI agents, specifically for governance and compliance reasons. Right? Think of files which have sensitive data in it, files which may have high toxicity score. Now, it's really important for the admins to be able to understand what these files are and respond to those changing needs accordingly. And once again, it would be really difficult to offer these experiences to our customers without having an easy-to-use, browsable experience, for which we, again, will be depending on the storage S3. We have been talking so far about unified experiences and the importance of it at Salesforce. Shifting gears a little bit and understanding what the next key principle is and the requirement from Salesforce's perspective that we see Storage Browser for S3 being able to deliver for us is we really want to give our users the ability to understand and modify, organize the data in the way in which they wish to, so that these customers really have a sense of ownership of their data, right? One key use case that we hear from customers in our healthcare industry, So Salesforce has a couple of products in Health Cloud, right? We've got Health Cloud, we've got Life Sciences Cloud, both of which are catered towards specifically companies and organizations in the healthcare industry. These customers typically have patient intake forms, and these forms are locally stored on their systems. At the same time, the same customers have historic data of their patients as well. But this data lives in files across different object stores, such as S3. Now, the moment both these forms of data and files are ingested to Data Cloud, they typically get stored in different prefix paths because they are being stored from different sources, right? Today, Salesforce does not have a way to provide users the visibility on how and where the files are stored within the Data Cloud platform. And moreover, because we don't have that capability at the very minimum, we can't really allow users to create folders as well. Now, for both these reasons, the storage browser for S3 is going to help us not only provide our customers with the single pane view of their files, regardless of where they were ingested from, but also allow customers to create new folders and organize the files as they wish to. Think about the same example that I just gave, right? You could have a patient intake form for a particular patient coming in from your local upload. At the same time, you could have the patient's historic data in your S3 as well. Now, you would want to logically create groupings of data which make sense to you and are meaningful in nature. And for this reason, creating new folders is of great importance. Beyond that, we have got customers in our healthcare industry, and beyond that, we've got customers even in the consumer good industries who have got a couple of files coming in from their product catalogs, right? Think about inventory forms which come in basically describing the existing list of products which are in their current inventory, or even emails which come in about new requests for new products and services as well. Now, once again, these customers want to create logical groupings, but not just for the sake of creating logical groupings, but to make these files available to downstream use cases. One key use case over here is being able to vectorize and create search index on top of their files. So once these customers are able to create these logical groupings in folders, the next thing that they wish to do is create a common search index across all the files within the same folder, right? And once again, we'll be turning to Storage Browser for S3 for letting users not only skim through their files, but create folders, move files across folders as well. So to quickly summarize the different use cases that Salesforce sees valuable and meaningful, which will be delivered through the Storage Browser for S3. Firstly, we see the S3 navigation, which is built in Salesforce S3 connector being delivered through the Storage Browser for S3. And beyond that, the requirement and the need that I just walked through regards to creating folders and moving files across folders as well will really help us give our users the flexibility and the customizability that they desire, finally giving them the sense of ownership that Salesforce wishes to provide its customers. And most importantly, even beyond all these benefits, the use of Storage Browser for S3 will be saving our developers a significant amount of time. Since using the Storage Browser for S3, our customers will be able to now spend, and our developers will now be able to spend more time writing code for the specific lines of businesses instead of building a storage browser ground up. And I'll hand it back to Louis.
I'll go for it. Yeah. Thank you, Keshav. So folks, I hope that you've gotten a good understanding for really the variety of use cases that you can bring to Storage Browser for S3. Jen covered some. Keshav deep dived his use case with Salesforce. And really, the key here is that if you've faced any challenges connecting your end users with data in S3, and you'd like to improve end user satisfaction and increase their productivity, or if you'd like to unburden your web developers so that they can focus on just the core features of their application instead of on the undifferentiated heavy lifting of configuring all of the different plumbing that we mentioned earlier that Storage Browser takes care of by default. If you've answered yes to any of these questions, then Storage Browser can really, really help you here. That's kind of the key takeaway. It helps you connect your end users to your data so that they can do more with it. And one thing to keep in mind is that this interface is secure. And you can federate access to your data based on your end users' identities. The other key takeaway is that you can make the Storage Browser interface look and feel like the rest of your host application. And finally, when you use Storage Browser for S3, you can take advantage of the really powerful SDK optimizations we've built in by default so that you don't have to build this yourselves. All right, one thing to keep in mind is that we just launched GA this past Sunday. And so we are still in the early days of the feature. And we're going to continually invest in it as it delivers business value to you and other customers. But we really want your feedback to help us chart the direction of this feature so that it continues to deliver value for your use cases. So our roadmap is available on GitHub, it's public, and we'd really like to hear your comments and feedback on how you would like each of these features to work, and if there's any features that are not listed currently that you'd like to be added. If you take a picture of this QR code, you'll be directed to our documentation, which has a bunch of links out to other documentation as well as our roadmap. I'll leave it on the screen for just a couple moments. Awesome. All right, we've covered a lot of ground. Thank you for tuning in today. We really appreciate it. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your reInvent session. If you have any questions at all, please come up to me and my colleagues at the end of the session. We'd love to answer them. And before you leave, we'd really appreciate if you could take the survey and give us feedback on today's session. We review all of the survey results so that we could figure out how to raise the bar in future sessions for you. Thank you.